The playground sat in the middle of a forgotten stretch of rural Pennsylvania, surrounded on 3 sides by skeletal woods and on the 4th by a chain-link fence bent inward like something had tried to escape. No one played there anymore. The swings creaked with the wind, the carousel spun in slow, rusted circles, and the sandbox had long since become a nesting ground for dried leaves and the bones of small animals. But on the cold November morning that Jacob, Lily, and Marcus decided to cut through the park on their way home from school, they noticed something half buried at the edge of the sandbox. It was Marcus who first kicked at it, his boot hitting plastic with a dull, solid thunk. They dug it out with their bare hands, soil falling away in clumps. The object was a camcorder, old, early 2000s, caked in dirt but otherwise intact. Its lens was scratched, its buttons gummed with age, but when Jacob flipped open the side panel, the screen flickered dimly to life. The battery, inexplicably, still had some charge. Inside was a tape. No label, no markings. Just the worn black plastic and the faint scent of damp earth. They took it to Marcus's basement, where his dad kept an old TV with composite inputs. Jacob inserted the tape. The screen went dark, then flickered. A burst of static, then an image. A child's bedroom, dimly lit by a single lamp. The camera was static, resting on a surface. The room was silent, and then, barely perceptible, came a whisper, unintelligible, yet unmistakably human. A shape passed quickly across the frame, too fast to make out. The time stamp in the corner read April 19th, 2003. They watched in silence as the tape ran for 37 minutes, almost entirely still shots of empty rooms, faint noises, and the occasional flicker of movement just out of frame. The audio was garbled, layered with low-frequency hums and stuttered breathing. Then, in the final minute, the camera tilted. Someone had moved it. A pair of hands entered the frame, thin, dirt-streaked, shaking. The person, whoever they were, brought their face close to the lens. But just before they could see it, the screen went black. They sat there in silence for what felt like hours, hearts pounding. Marcus spoke first. "We should bury it again." But Jacob shook his head. "We need to find out where that was filmed." Lily whispered what none of them wanted to hear. What if it was filmed here? The next day, they returned to the playground with flashlights and a shovel. And beneath the sandbox, they found more than just dirt. Layers of it had clearly been disturbed before. Digging deeper, they found wood, then bone, and fabric, and finally, a second tape, also unlabeled. The second tape. They didn't speak on the walk back to Marcus's house. The wind was sharp, cutting through their jackets, and the sun was slipping beneath the horizon faster than it should have. Jacob carried the second tape in his pocket, wrapped in his beanie to keep his hands from touching it directly. Lily kept glancing over her shoulder. Marcus, pale and sweating despite the cold, unlocked the basement door with trembling fingers. Inside, the old TV hummed to life, the soft glow casting shadows on the cement walls. No one sat. No one dared. Jacob slid the tape in. It began instantly. A view from the ground, angled upward as if the camera had been dropped. Leaves stirred in the foreground. A child's voice cried out, faint and far away. Then silence. For nearly a minute, the frame didn't move. Then something passed in front of the lens. It was not entirely human. The proportions were wrong. Elongated limbs, movement too fluid, like someone mimicking a human shape in fast forward. Lily flinched. Marcus stepped back. Jacob leaned in. The scene cut abruptly. Not a natural fade, but a tearing digital glitch. The image that followed was the same child's bedroom from the first tape, only this time the furniture had changed. It looked older, dustier. The lamp was still on, but it flickered now, as if the bulb was dying. On the bed sat a child, unmoving, face obscured by a blur that shouldn't have existed on tape. A smudge of pixels, pulsating slightly. The whispering returned, louder this time. Still unintelligible, still rhythmic. Jacob stepped closer to the screen. He could hear something beneath the whispers, something mechanical. A ticking, then the tape cut to black. For a full 3 seconds, the screen was empty. Then a single frame flickered in. A swing, creaking in slow motion. Not the swing at their local park, but it looked nearly identical. Only this one was surrounded by trees. Dense, overgrown woods pressing in on all sides. There were markings on the trees, symbols scratched into bark, spirals in eyes, and jagged letters. And just behind the swing, a figure. Too tall, too still. Its head tilted slightly, as if it had noticed the camera. Then nothing. The tape ejected itself. None of them spoke for several minutes. Then Lily turned, her voice barely above a whisper. "We have to go there." Jacob nodded. "Those woods. We find them." Marcus didn't move. His eyes were locked on the now black screen, his lips moving soundlessly. Lily grabbed his arm. "Hey, Marcus." He blinked, looked up. It knew we were watching. That night, Lily scoured satellite maps, searching for clusters of woods with clearing patterns that matched what they saw. Jacob searched forms for any mention of the symbols. Marcus stayed silent, his eyes hollow, barely blinking. At 2:37 a.m., Lily found it, 15 miles north, near an abandoned hunting ground marked as state-restricted property. By morning, Jacob had printed a map. Lily had packed a flashlight, first aid kit, and a cheap digital recorder. Marcus didn't bring anything. He simply followed. The road to the site was cracked and overtaken by moss. Trees arched overhead, blotting out the sun. By the time they reached the perimeter, the air felt different. Denser, charged. The temperature dropped by 10 degrees. The trees didn't move with the wind. They stood unnaturally still, as if holding their breath. They stepped past the rusted gate. The swing was there. The symbols were there. But the woods were too quiet. As they advanced, the air pressed heavier against their chests. Jacob raised his phone to take a photo, but the screen glitched, turning to static before shutting off completely. Lily's recorder emitted a low-pitched whine, then died. Marcus froze. At the base of one tree was a mound of disturbed earth. Jacob dropped to his knees and began digging with his hands. The soil was cold and damp. Within minutes, his fingers struck something hard. Plastic. A third tape. This one had a word carved into the side with something sharp. "Watch." Did it see us? It didn't wait to return home this time. Jacob pulled a small field monitor from his backpack, one of those cheap handheld models he used for drone footage. It had a composite input. Lily connected the camcorder, her fingers stiff with cold. The monitor buzzed to life with a flicker. The screen was smaller than the old TV, but it worked. The tape clicked inside. A hiss of static. Then the image. It was night. The footage shook violently, as if whoever held the camera was running. Branches whipped past the lens, and muffled breathing echoed beneath the hiss. The camera jolted upward for a moment. A glimpse of the moon, full and pale behind clawed branches, then downward again. Suddenly, the person stopped. The camera lowered to eye level. Ahead was the swing. It creaked, slowly, in perfect rhythm. Back and forth, back and forth. The forest around it stood perfectly still. Then something stepped into frame, not from the side, from behind the swing. It didn't walk. It unfolded, like limbs stretching after decades of sleep. Its body was long, impossibly thin. Joints where there shouldn't be joints. Head tilted. No face, only a smooth, pale surface that shimmered slightly, like stretched wax over water. The swing stopped, The thing turned toward the camera. A whisper, clear this time. "Are you watching now?" Lily gasped. The camera shook again, running now through brambles and underbrush, wild and frantic. The sound warped, growing deeper, slower. Each step of the person holding the camera seemed to echo louder than the last. Then silence. The tape cut. New footage began. A new room. Not the bedroom from before. This was a basement. Damp walls, exposed pipes. A workbench littered with old tools and what looked like bones. Animal, maybe. Too small to be sure. The camera was still, placed on a tripod or surface. The only sound was dripping water. The camera zoomed slowly toward the far wall. A set of hooks, chains. A shape sat against the far wall. A child, not moving. Back turned to the camera. No noise, no explanation. Then the head moved. It turned slowly, too slowly. The face was in shadow, but it saw the camera, then smiled. The smile didn't end. It stretched beyond what should have been possible. A rictus grin, teeth like chalk, eyes hollow and glinting. Then darkness. Another jump cut. The footage now was daytime again, but the camcorder lay on its side in the dirt. The edge of the sandbox visible. A child's shoe nearby. No voices, no footsteps. The tape continued for nearly 20 minutes. No movement, just the wind. Then, one final frame before the tape ended. A face right in front of the lens. But it wasn't distorted this time. It was Marcus. Older, pale, hollow-eyed, and smiling. Jacob ripped the camcorder's cable from the monitor. The screen went black. For a moment, they all stood still in the middle of that clearing, surrounded by the thick silence of the woods. Marcus looked at them, dazed. "That wasn't me," he whispered. But he didn't sound convinced. Lily stared at the ground, voice shaking. This was filmed before we found the camera. Jacob's breath caught in his throat. "It means this already happened." Marcus turned to face the swing. It had stopped moving. But now, hanging from one of the chains, was something that hadn't been there before. A fresh red ribbon, still swaying. What was buried here? They didn't speak for the rest of the walk home. Jacob drove, hands gripping the steering wheel like a vice. Lily sat in the back seat with the camcorder in her lap, staring at the cracked screen as if it would spring to life again. Marcus leaned against the window, eyes unfocused, lips slightly parted. Every few minutes, he would flinch at something invisible. At Marcus's house, they gathered in the basement again. No one turned on the TV. No one touched the tapes. They just sat in the dim light of a bare bulb, shadows clinging to the corners of the room like cobwebs. Lily was the first to break the silence. "We need to know who lived in that house." "The one in the tape." Jacob nodded. "We need names, property records, maybe. Maybe there's a police report." Marcus finally spoke, his voice a thin rasp. "We're not supposed to know." Jacob turned to him. "What do you mean?" Marcus blinked slowly. "It didn't want us to see it. It only wanted us to watch." Lily stood up, suddenly filled with a sense of urgency. "We can find out who lived there. I'll check county archives. School records, something. Someone must remember that house." They split tasks. Jacob went online, searching through old real estate records and digital archives. Lily emailed a local historical society, posing as a student researching abandoned properties. Marcus ... Simply sat, fingers twitching in slow, erratic patterns, muttering numbers under his breath. At 2:12 a.m., Jacob found something. A newspaper clipping. April 2003. Local boy missing after playground disappearance. The article was short, vague, no photos. Just a name, Nathaniel Ames, age 10, and a note that he vanished after last being seen near the Crescent Ridge playground. A small quote from the mother. He said he saw something in the woods, something that watched him. I should have listened. Lily found the address next. The Ames family had lived less than a mile from the playground. The house was condemned in 2005 after a fire gutted the upper floors. No survivors. No official cause. They drove out at dawn. The house was barely standing, hidden behind rows of overgrowth. The porch collapsed inward, and the roof had holes large enough to see the skeletal beams beneath. But the door still hung crookily in its frame. They stepped inside. Dust and soot covered everything. The smell of charred wood still lingered, thick and acrid. As they passed what had once been the living room, they noticed strange patterns scratched into the floorboards. Spirals, eyes, geometric shapes that didn't quite align. In the kitchen, they found a rusted sink filled with dark, stagnant water. Above it, someone had written a phrase on the wall, long faded, but still legible in the morning light. If you watch long, E-N-O-U-G-H, it sees back. They stood in silence, the weight of the house pressing down on them. And Jacob heard it, a soft, rhythmic creaking. From upstairs, they followed the sound, each step on the staircase groaning louder than the last. The hallway above was scorched and brittle, but intact. The creaking led them to a small door, Nathaniel's bedroom. Inside, everything was as it had been in the tape. Same lamp, same bed, same soft flicker of dying light. And sitting in the center of the bed, impossibly, was the camcorder. But not the one they had. This one was newer, different. Beside it, a tape, also unlabeled. And beside that, a photograph. 3 children standing in front of the playground. Jacob, Lily, Marcus, taken from behind. None of them remembered it being taken, and they were all looking toward the sandbox. Marcus stepped forward and picked up the tape. He turned to the others, his eyes glassy. "We didn't find the camera," he said. "It found us. Are we on the tape? They didn't take the tape home?" "Not this time." Jacob demanded they destroy it, smash the camcorder, burn the photograph. But Lily hesitated, not because she wanted to see what was on it, but because she feared what might happen if they didn't. Marcus held it like something sacred. His fingers trembled, but he didn't let go. They argued in whispers outside the house, beneath gray morning skies, until Jacob finally grabbed the tape from Marcus's hands and hurled it against the pavement. It didn't break, not a scratch. The silence that followed was too complete. No birds, no wind, just the hum of distant power lines and the weight of something unseen. That night, Jacob couldn't sleep. His phone glitched every time he opened the camera app. When he finally forced it to record, it would only show static until a brief frame flashed in the footage. A still image of his own bedroom from outside his window. He hadn't filmed it. At 3:09 a.m., his phone turned itself on. It played a video. Jacob sat up, drenched in sweat, as the screen showed him walking down the hallway, a perfect mirror of his movements just hours before. Only this time, he wasn't alone. A shadow trailed behind him, just out of reach, taller, slower, head tilted at an unnatural angle. Then the video ended, and he heard a knock at the front door. 3 short raps. Then silence. He didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared at the door from across the dark room until the first rays of morning light crept through the blinds. At Lily's house, something worse happened. She woke up to the sound of her own voice, whispering. She followed it to the bathroom. The mirror was fogged over, though no one had showered. When she wiped it clean, there was something written in the condensation. "I see you now." And behind her reflection, something else. A blur, a figure. No features, no details. Just presence. She turned. No one. That afternoon, They regrouped. Marcus looked worse than ever. Pale, eyes sunken. He hadn't slept. He hadn't eaten. He clutched the new tape like it was part of him. Jacob didn't ask where he'd gotten it again. They all knew. "I watched it," Marcus said. Silence. "It starts with the sandbox, but not how we found it. It shows us digging, shows me pulling the camera out, shows us going to the woods. Then it jumps, shows us standing at the swing." He looked at them, unblinking. "It showed what happens next." Lily swallowed hard. "What did it show?" Marcus shook his head slowly. "It's still recording." They stared at him, too afraid to ask. "Not playback," Marcus said. "It's live." Jacob took a step back. "What do you mean, love?" Marcus raised the tape. "It showed me holding this, right now, talking to you." Then he turned the tape toward them. The surface reflected the faintest shimmer, like light off water. Lily stepped closer, heart hammering. The tape wasn't opaque anymore. Inside it, impossibly, was motion. Tiny figures, 3 of them, standing outside a broken house, watching themselves. And behind them, growing clearer with each passing second, a shape began to form. Tall, featureless, tilting its head in that same slow arc. Watching, the reflection showed it closer now. Closer. Lily backed away. Jacob slapped the tape from Marcus's hand. It hit the floor, cracked, split. The motion stopped. But for a second, just a second, they all heard it. A voice from inside the broken tape, whispering up through the fracture. "I'm almost through." It was never a tape. They buried it in the woods, not the backyard, not the sandbox. The real woods, the place behind the swing, deeper than they had ever gone before, where the trees grow so tight you feel the earth breathing with you. They dug with their hands until their fingers bled, then threw the fractured tape into the shallow pit and covered it with rocks and soil. No one spoke on the walk back. No one said that the whisper followed them the whole way, but they all heard it. The days that followed were full of absence. Sleep pulled away like receding tide. Mirrors refused to hold their reflections for more than a blink. Phones turned on with static. Lights flickered when they passed. But the worst was the sense, subtle at first, that they were being filmed. Lily felt it most at night, when she lay still and could hear the tiny mechanical hum, like a recording device. It came from nowhere, or everywhere. A slow whine, a click, then silence. Jacob started waking up with dry soil under his nails. His hands would ache like he'd been digging again. The first time it happened, he thought it was stress. The third time, he found a splinter of black plastic in his palm. Marcus didn't speak anymore. He just stared at the ground, eyes unfocused, his lips forming silent words. Not prayer. Something older. Lily brought them back together after a week. "This wasn't about the tapes," she said. "It's not in the footage." She pulled out pages from a printed forum. Old threads, forgotten by search engines. The camera wasn't recording what happened. "It's not a memory. It's a conduit." Jacob squinted. "What do you mean?" "It's not playback. It's an anchor. A loop, like a snare. You watch it, and it sees you. It pulls you in. And then..." She trailed off. Jacob finished the thought. "Then it starts recording." Lily nodded. "That's what it wants. Eyes, witnesses, not to remember, to continue." Marcus finally spoke. "But it's not done yet." They returned to the swing at dusk. The woods were different now, thinner, in a way that felt wrong. Like walking through the blueprint of a forest, not the real thing. And there, at the edge of the clearing, sat a camcorder. Not theirs, not the original. A new one, shiny, untouched. Its red light was on, already recording. Jacob approached first. The screen showed the clearing, the 3 of them, in real time. Lily checked her phone. No signal, no time. Just a single notification. Now watching. Jacob stepped back. No, but Marcus didn't. He stared into the lens. I remember now. He turned to them, eyes hollow. I was the first. Lily shook her head. What are you talking about? I watched the original tape, the real one, when I was a kid, he swallowed. Before I forgot, before it buried it. Jacob's breath caught. Marcus. Marcus smiled. I let it in. That's how it starts. One eye at a time. He reached out and touched the lens. And the screen blinked. The image changed. Now it was just Lily and Jacob. Marcus was gone. The camcorder beeped once, then shut off. They ran, back through the forest, back through the cold, back into the parts of the world where things made sense. But Marcus was never found. No missing report, no search party, no evidence he'd existed at all. Except, the next day, a new tape arrived in Lily's mailbox, unlabeled, and on it, a single still frame. Marcus, standing in the woods. And behind him, another figure, taller, watching. And on the far right side of the screen, in the last flicker of light, a camcorder, pointed toward the viewer. Red light blinking. Still recording.